SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation. SLT Mobitel Fiber, the fiber of the nation.
Comfort Moodian භාගයයි කලක් පවතින අලුත් පෙනුමයි.
Tonight, time for a change. The President calls for a new sustainability-centric global agri-revolution at the COP26 conference.
Sri Lanka especially welcomes investments into renewable energy as well as organic agriculture.
The iron is hot. One country, one law task force head says appointment an ideal opportunity to address and act on Bodubala Sena concerns. The signs are good. Business confidence up to a 5-month high in October due to pandemic gains and budget 2022 expectations. First in line, health experts call for Sinopharm recipients to be prioritised as the booster dose rollout begins today. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Monday, the 1st of November, 2021.
Nelly, මතකෙන් ගිලිහුණු black shiny කෙස් කලඹක රහස Sunsilk Black Shine සමගින්.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammik Ekanak. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa says that the world needs a new agricultural revolution with sustainability at its core. Addressing a special conference in Glasgow organised by Sri Lanka yesterday on the sidelines of the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference, the head of state also said that Sri Lanka welcomes investment on renewable energy and organic agriculture.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who left Sri Lanka last Saturday to address the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Glasgow in Scotland, attended a special conference which was organised by Sri Lanka yesterday on the sidelines of the COP26. It was given the theme Rediscovering Nitrogen, Solutions and Synergies for Health, Biodiversity and Circular Economy.
Sri Lanka became the first country in the world to take the decision to convert conventional agricultural lands 100% organic.
In October 2019, 14 nations joined the Colombo Declaration on Sustainable Nitrogen Management. This important declaration encourages nations to develop national roadmaps for sustainable nitrogen management with a view to reducing nitrogen waste in half by 2030. I thank the nations already associated with this declaration and encourages others to do the same. Nitrogen is an abundant element that is essential to the sustenance of all living things. However, reactive nitrogen generated by human activity and released into ecosystems worsens climate change. Overuse of nitrogen, especially in fertilizers, has adverse impact on soil, water, air, and human health. For decades, chronic kidney disease has been a serious issue in Sri Lanka's agricultural heartland. It is in this context that my government took firm steps to reduce imports of chemical fertilizer and strongly encourage organic agriculture. Sri Lanka was known in historic times as the granary of the East. This reputation was achieved due to the sophistication of our ancient hydraulic civilization. It was also supported by the traditional wisdom and practices inherited by our farmers in the past who understood the importance of respecting nature and worked hard to sustain it. The challenge facing us now is to use modern scientific techniques and practices to enhance agricultural production without causing environmental degradation. We require a new agricultural revolution that has sustainability at its core. Humans must be in sync with nature rather than work against it. My government's policy frameworks emphasize sustainability. This is reflected in Sri Lanka's ambitious, updated, nationally determined contributions to the UNFCCC mechanism. These include increasing the contribution of renewable energy sources to 70% of national needs by 2030, achieving carbon neutrality by 2050, and ensuring no more new coal power projects. Sri Lanka is proud to be a co-lead of the Energy Compact for no new coal power. We also play a leadership role in mangrove restoration and conservation, including through the Commonwealth Blue Charter. Sri Lanka's progressive agenda on the environment is despite the resource constraints it faces as a developing nation. Sustaining such an agenda alongside development programs is challenging for all developing nations, especially following the pandemic. I therefore hope that developed countries will extend their fullest support to such nations through development assistance, technology transfers, skills development, investment, and financing support. Sri Lanka especially welcomes investments into renewable energy as well as organic agriculture and is prepared to support their success through incentives and appropriate policy interventions. I therefore hope that greater cooperation in this regard will be forthcoming in future. All of us alive today are custodians of this planet on behalf of future generations. We must all work together towards ensuring its health by contributing in whatever way we can.
Big 3.
Justice Minister Ali Sabri says that when the executive and the legislature are having to rely on divisive politics at the ground level, it is the judiciary and the civil society that must come into the mix to create a level playing field. He added that this is the very reason why the judiciary needs to be made more effective in order to resolve conflicts, I should say, and also why civil society must continue to fight for what they believe in. He made these remarks at the first annual conference organised by the Office of National Unity and Reconciliation under the theme Resolving Differences Through Understanding, Sustainable Peace, Security and Reconciliation in Modern Society yesterday.
Any process to go towards its real objectives, it's important that we sit, discuss, deliberate, and then create a vision. After creating that vision, we have to closely monitor the mission to achieve various stages. I think this is going to be a game changer as far as Onuru is concerned. If you sit, go through, realize these ideas, find out, and get a proper agenda in order to achieve what is necessary. It's very important for us to know that unless civil society and the judiciary involves, very, very difficult to establish a level playing field, whether it's Sri Lanka or any part of the other countries. Because executive and the legislature will have to rely on divisive politics on the ground level. So you need a leveler in between, come to put it right. So that is why we must strengthen the judiciary, make it more efficacious, more efficient, so that disputes are quickly and a timely manner with less expense could resolve. And the civil society should continue to fight in what they believe. We shouldn't shun differences of opinion. Dissent is part of democracy. That's how we go to the right decision at the end of the day. Sometimes we think this is the best decision, but there is the other side to that decision. So these two have to go somewhere, and somebody in between, in the middle, has to look at both and come to a finding which is not passionate but dispassionate. So that's why it's important that we have to empower the judiciary. So it is in that sense that an institution like this is so important. Continue to fight on the ground level to create that empathy. I think Sri Lanka lacks a lot of empathy. We need empathy, we need compassion. Many countries have gone this far due to that. So we need efficiency, we need inclusiveness, we need empathy, we need compassion. We all want peace. Different people have chosen different paths. That is why it's important that these different paths should be debated, discussed, find out what is the correct path to achieve that. I don't think anyone in this country wants anything other than peace. But strategies may be different. Ideas may be different. But wrong ideas can take us to a wrong route and to a wrong destination. That is why these discussions are important. We are the pearl of Indian Ocean. We should not make it the teardrop of Indian Ocean.
Chairman of the Presidential Task Force appointed to study the one country, one law concept, Venerable Galagodatte Gnanasaratthera says that this remains a golden opportunity to address concerns highlighted by the Bodubala Sena and bring about necessary solutions to them. The Thera was referring to issues relating to unethical conversions, forced sterilisation and cultural invasions in the country.
In the backdrop of much public criticism of his appointment as the chairperson of the Presidential Task Force to study the one country, one law concept, Venerable Galagodatte Gnanasaratthera fielded media questions this morning, addressing concerns on the appropriateness of his appointment, given the somewhat controversial past actions of the Bodubala Sena organisation, which he heads. The Thera says that minority communities need not have any misgivings, as the task force aims to ensure that any laws drafted by legal experts address public issues.
අපි නීති විශාරදයෝ නෙමෙයි. මේ නීති විශාරදයන් බලන ඇහැකින් මේ ප්‍රශ්න දිහා බලන්න නෙමෙයි අපිට මේ වගකීම දුන්නේ. නීති විශාරදයන් විසින් සකස් කරලා තියෙන අනපනත් මේ කෙටුම්පත් ඇතුලේ මිනිස්සුන්ගේ අවශ්‍යතාවයන් ඒ ආකාරයෙන් සම්පූර්ණ වෙලා තියෙනවද නැද්ද කියන කාරණාව වෙනත් මානයකින් වෙනත් කෝණයකින් බලන්න තියෙන අවශ්‍යතාවයක් මතයි මේ කටයුත්ත ගොඩනගලා තියෙන්නේ. අපි සම්බන්ධයෙන් නොඑක් විවේචන තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද ඒක අපේ අතීත භාවිතාව. ඊට හේතුව අපි සමාජය තුළ ගොඩ නැගුණෙම මේ නීතිය හරියට ක්‍රියාත්මක නොවීමෙන් ජනයා තුළ ඇතිවන ආතතීන් තේරුම් අරගෙන ඒවාට විසඳුම් සොයා දීම සඳහා කරපු අරගලයක් තමයි අපේ ජීවන භාවිතාවේ පහුගිය කාලේ දැක්කේ එක විදිහට එකයි විග්‍රහ කරගන්න ඇති. ඉතින් සුළු ජාතියවත් වෙන කවුරුවත් කලබල වෙන්න උවමනාවක් නැහැ.
Further, the Thera also touched on questions regarding the lack of Tamil representation in the task force, explaining that choosing Tamil candidates was a far more complicated task than previously imagined.
අපි 10-12 දෙනෙකුගේ නම් එකතු කරගෙන තියෙනවා. එතනදිත් ගැටලුවක් මතුව වුණා. දැන් යාපනයේ දෙමළ අය කැමති නැහැ මහනුවරින් දෙමළ කෙනෙක් ගන්න. තව ප්‍රබුද්ධ දෙමළ ජාතික මහත්මිය ගන්නකොට කියනවා මෙයා අහවල් සංවිධානයට සම්බන්ධයි. මෙයා එක්කෝ රෝ එකේ වෙන්න ඇති. මෙයා CIA වෙන්න ඇති. මේ එකට Tamanගේ ජන කොටස අතරවත් ඒකමතියක් නැති වටපිටාවක අපි පුජ්‍යලයන් තෝරා ගැනීමේදී මෙවැනි වැඩකට හරි පරිස්සම් සහගත වෙන්න වෙනවා. මොකද අපි නම් අපේ පපුවෙන් අපි හිතන්නේ නැහැ වෙන්ව. අපි හිතන්නේ එක ජාතියක්. මේ කැක්කුම තියෙන්නේ මේක වෙන්ව තියාගෙන අවුල් නිර්මාණය කරන උදවියට.
The Venerable Thera also explained that his belief was that the appointment of the task force by the President was both a recognition of the seriousness of the issues taken up by the Bodubala Sena in the past and a golden opportunity to make them all a reality.
අපි කතා කළා අයථා අන්‍යාගමිකරණය ගැන, ඒ වගේම රාජ්‍ය අනුග්‍රහයෙන් කරන වන්ද්‍යාකරණය ගැන, මේ රටේ පුරාවස්තු සංහාරය ගැන, ඒ වගේම සංස්කෘතික ආක්‍රමණය ගැන, මේ වගේ කරුණු කාරණා ගැන තමයි අපි කතා කරේ. එතකොට අද අපි මේ විඳපු දුකට ප්‍රතිඵලයක් ලැබිලා තියෙනවා. රටේ ජනාධිපතිවරයාගේ අවධානය යොමු වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ ප්‍රශ්න රැඩිකල් විදිහට මේ සමාජයේ හමුවේ විවර කරපු කණ්ඩායම් වලටත් අවස්ථාවක් දෙන්න අපේ හෘද ස්පන්දනය මොකක්ද කියලා හරියට විග්‍රහ කළා පෙන්වන්න. ඉතින් කවුරුවත් කලබල විය යුතු නැහැ. අපි බොදුබල සේනා වැඩපිළිවෙල ඇතුලේ කතා කරපු දේවල් තමයි ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම අපට මේ ගැසට් පත්‍රය අනුව සාකච්ඡා කරන්න වෙන්නේ සහ ඒ කෙටුම්පත් තුලට ගේන්න වෙන්නේ.
The Thera also warned that the country remains under threat by radical Christian organizations tasked with fomenting religious disharmony and painting a skewed picture to the United Nations in Geneva.
මේ රට ඇතුලේ ආගමික කෝලාහල නිර්මාණය කිරීම සඳහා ක්‍රිස්තියානි මූලධර්මවාදී සංවිධාන පමණක් 500 ඉක්මවල තියෙනවා. ඒගොල්ලන් තමයි ජිනිවා වලට උවමනා කරන පින්තූරේ මෙහි හදන්නේ. එතකොට අපි කිව්ව වැඩිය නෙමෙයි. මේ ලොකු අනපනත් නෙමෙයි. අවම තරමින් ග්‍රන්ථ නියාමන පනතක් ගේන්න මේ වැරදි මත සමාජයට ගෙනල්ලා අපේ තරුණයන්ව අපේ දරුවන්ව නොමග යවන වැඩේ නතර කරන්න. මේ ග්‍රන්ථ නියාමන පනත කියන්නේ පෙරුණා දැන් අවුරුදු ගාණක්. ෆේල් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ සර් නෙමෙයි. ෆේල් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ මේ රටේ නිලධාරී පැලැන්ති. ඒගොල්ලන් දේශපාලනය කරනවා මේක ඇතුලේ.
මිලියන 18.8 නිවස ලක්ෂ 5ක් ගෙවා දැන්ම වෙන් කරවා ගන්න මල්බෙරි රෙසිඩන්ස්.
Health experts say that the Sri Lankan people are starting to forget that COVID-19 is still a very real threat. They point to data that show a 12.2% hike in new cases and a 9.1% rise in deaths reported last week compared to the week before. With Deepavali festival just around the corner, health officials are concerned that greater social mixing would lead to another cluster. In the meantime, the Sri Lanka Medical Association stresses the need, to give a booster dose for Sinopharm jab recipients ahead of others as their immunity wanes after 3 months following the second dose administration.
The roads in Colombo were busier than usual today as many private vehicles and public transport made their way to the country's commercial capital. This is the first time in nearly 6 months that interprovincial travel was made possible. However, the police urged the public intending to cross provincial borders to do so if travel is absolutely necessary. Meanwhile, with Deepavali falling on this Thursday, there is yet another possibility of a long weekend. In view of it, the Ministry of Health emphasized the importance of exercising extreme caution when making trips. The request is to choose less busier travel destinations and not to abandon the health and safety guidelines. Adding on to these sentiments was the Sri Lanka Medical Association, which said that it appears that people believe the COVID virus is no more.
It appears that the numbers of cases that has happened over last week is 12.2% more than the week before. The number of deaths over last week had been 9.1% more than the deaths that had happened 1 week ago. When we consider the situations that happen in UK, Israel and in other countries, it is quite possible that we may get another surge, not to the extent that we had, but then it's possible that we could get clusters. And particularly, it may be possible that there will be patients, though the deaths and the severe cases might become much lower than previous situations. So therefore, it's important that we as people avoid all possibilities of contracting the disease. Now, if we have contracted the disease and if we have got both vaccinations, it's likely that we may not suffer a severe disease or that we might not die, but then it's possible that we transmit the disease to others who are at home, our elderly with immunocompromised status, and it's the person who is at home who has not come out that might succumb to the illness.
On the country's vaccine front, Sri Lanka began rolling out booster doses for frontline health officials, the Triforce's personnel, and members of the tourism industry today. In addition, health experts said that according to data, people who receive the Sinopharm jab should receive a booster dose before others as the immunity of such persons wane after 3 months.
Sinopharm එන්නත පළවෙනි මාස ටික ගත්තම යම්කිසි ආරක්ෂාවක් තිබුණට පිටරට දත්ත අනුව සහ ලංකාවේ මහාචාර්ය නීලිකා මලවීගේ දත්ත අනුව මාස 3කට විතර පස්සේ ආරක්ෂකතාවය අඩු වෙනවා කියලා පේනවා. හැම වයස් කාණ්ඩයකම මේක අඩු වෙනවා කියලා අපිට දත්ත පේනවා. ඉතින් මේ දත්ත සේරම ගත්තම අපිට පේන්නේ Sinopharm එන්නත ගහපු අයට බූස්ටර් ඩෝස් එකක් දෙන එක මම හිතන්නේ නුවණට හුරු. Pfizer එන්නත් දෙකක් ගහපු අය තුන්වෙනි මාත්‍රාවක් ගහන එක නුවණට හුරුයි. හැබැයි ඒක මාස 6ක් 8ක් වෙනකන් කාලයක් දික් කරන්න පුළුවන්. Sinopharm එන්නත ගහපු අයට ඊට වඩා කලින් දෙන්න කියලා මම කියනවා.
On the child inoculation front, President of the Sri Lanka College of Pediatricians, Professor Shaman Rajendrajit, meanwhile says that data on child vaccinations around the globe is still lacking.
Now, the data is coming from China, saying that this was a paper in the Lancet, one of the most respected journal, saying they can vaccinate children from 3 to 19 with Sinopharm vaccine and they have good protection at the initial stages. The data has been already published. In addition, USA and Canada, they are considering giving 1/3 of the usual dose of Pfizer biotech vaccine to children below 12 years. We need to wait and see how things are progressing. So data is not enough. Now we have this committee who is very closely monitoring what is happening around the world, because we want to be very proactive in this process of getting our children vaccinated. We constantly have dialogue with the Ministry of Health, ACCD, so that we are watching very carefully, and as soon as we have more data, we just can go ahead and do that.
In the meantime, reports of digital autism have surfaced, especially after children were pushed towards electronic devices for educational activities following the island-wide school closure.
We believe it is very important to physically open the schools and continue school education in the normal environment as much as possible, simply because the screen time is one of the problems that we have encountered during last 2 years. Too much of a screen time would cause a lot of medical as well as psychological issues in children. The education in school is not only subject matter, it consists of so many things: interaction between children as well as teachers, which teaches them a lot of positive things. Interaction with other children will give them social benefits. These are very important things. In addition, it is vital to have extracurricular activities in the school going.
In other local news, the Department of Meteorology warns the public to expect thunder showers in the next few days due to low pressure atmosphere in and around Sri Lanka at the moment. Now, low pressure zone is expected to move into the Arabian Sea by either tomorrow or the day after.
Showery conditions in several areas of the island enhanced yesterday as a result of a low pressure atmosphere existing in the vicinity of Sri Lanka. The highest rainfall yesterday was reported from the area of Teleppalai in the Jaffna district at 152 meters. In the Kalutara district, the area of Dodangoda, Palindanuwara as well as Kalwana Road in Baduraliya were seen flooded as a result of the heavy deluge last night. With tributaries of Magura and Kudaganga of the river Kalu reaching spill level, the Department of Irrigation warns that people in low-lying areas to be vigilant of flood situations. What's more, the same was observed in the Pittabedara area due to the river Nilwala reaching spill levels. Meanwhile, in Nuva province, earth slips have occurred in the area of Ravanala along the Badulla Bandaravela main road. According to the Department of Meteorology, the low pressure zone near Sri Lanka, which is causing heavy showers, is expected to move to the Arabian Sea by tomorrow or the day after. Until then, the department says that the rains will continue.
We are still in the intermonsoon season. Thunder showers are possible particularly during the afternoon or evening during next few days. Morning showers also likely over southwestern coastal areas, especially over western Sabaragamuwa, southern and central provinces. Heavy showers above 100 mm also can be expected some places in the western Sabaragamuwa, southern, central and north central provinces.
Senior Manager of Digital Media at Derana Macro Entertainment as well as Editor-in-Chief of Pulse, Sachita Kalingamudri was named the Young Corporate Man of the Year at the New Generation Awards 2021. Kalingamudri received the award last Friday from Minister of Youth and Sports Namal Rajpaksha at a felicitation ceremony that was organised in Colombo by the organisation Women in Management and the National Youth Services Council. A digital media enthusiast with a passion towards content creation and digital marketing, Sachita has been leading the team at the Pulse magazine since its inception in 2015. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now then, business confidence is at a 5-month high according to the LMD Nielsen IQ index for the month of October. That cites significant gains in the country's pandemic efforts and as corporates expect a lot from the budget this month.
With some analysts predicting a V-shaped recovery for the Sri Lankan economy following the 3.2% contraction last year, the signs seem to be promising for business confidence as well. The LMD Nielsen IQ Business Confidence Survey for October shows some improvement due to many positives such as progress on the healthcare front, namely declining COVID-19 cases and deaths, and expectations for the upcoming budget 2022. With that, the Business Confidence Index for October improved by 7 points to end at a 5-month high of 111, but still 4 points below the year-on-year mark. However, the index is still 6 points higher than the 12-month average for the first time since April. Nielsen IQ's Director Consumer Insights Derana English says that all signs are positive that Sri Lanka remains set to control the spread of the virus due to its massive gains in its vaccination drive. In terms of the index's future trajectory, AdaDerana says that despite pandemic gains, there are some short and long-term effects being felt, such as shortages and high consumer prices, that are of some concern. Citing escalating economic uncertainty and fears of shortages of items such as food and fuel last month, AdaDerana says, however, that although these have now abated, recent price hikes of many essential items, together with the prospect of more to come, especially on the fuel front, could however undermine business confidence in the near term. She concludes that how the business community views the forthcoming budget proposals will also be crucial, along with the positives associated with an easing of lockdown restrictions.
Headline inflation increased to 7.6% in October from 5.7% in September this year. Monthly increases of prices of items in both food and non-food categories have driven the increase. Subsequently, food inflation increased to 12.8% in October year-on-year from 10% in September. Non-food inflation, meanwhile, increased to 5.4% last month from 3.8% in September. The Colombo Consumer Price Index, measured on an annual average basis, increased to 4.8% in October from 5.4% in September. Monthly change of CCPI recorded at 1.4% in October due to price increases in items of both food and non-food categories. Moreover, monthly changes of food and non-food categories recorded at 0.91% and 1.03% respectively. Within the food category, prices of rice, milk powder, coconut and fresh fish increased. Prices of items in the non-food category recorded increases mainly due to price increases in the housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuels, restaurant and hotel subcategories during the month. The core inflation, meanwhile, increased to 6.3% in October from 5% in September this year. The annual average core inflation, meanwhile, jumped to 3.6% in October 2021 from 3.3% in September 2021. Sri Lankan shares, meanwhile, closed lower today, hit by losses in industrials and financial stocks, with the CSE All-Share Price Index settling down 0.30% to end at 10,132.12 points after ending at a record high on Friday. Meanwhile, the S&P SL 20 index of more liquid stocks gained 24.29 points to close at 3,711.85, while the day's turnover recorded at 3.7 billion rupees. Now with that, here's Dimantha Matthew with a brief report on today's market performance.
The market was volatile, switching between positives and negatives over the last couple of days, and today back again into negative territory, where we saw the overall market ASPI decline by around 31 points there. However, at the start of the day, the market was on a positive note, moving up significantly by 40 to 50 basis points. However, the main issue was that the upward trend was primarily based on some of the illiquid counters, and this uptrend was short-lived, and we saw selling pressure coming in some of the retail favorite counters.
Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan rupee continues to remain at 202.99 cents against the US dollar. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee fared against other major currencies during the day. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.